What we have done differently in Liquiloans is that Anant's 1 lakh rupees is diversified across hundreds and hundreds of borrowers, right? So if you have lent your 5 lakh rupees, it will be diversified across at least 500 people. Of course, basis your risk profile and risk segment you want to target, right? Townie kids didn't know where Goregaon is. Like, they asked me, one of the kids, where do you come from? Like, Goregaon. Kids were like, stupid, it's ahead of Andheri. So one thing I was very, very clear is that stock market is something which excites me. Time value of money is something excites me, and accounting is something which does not excite me at all, right?
So, hi guys, welcome to another episode of Finance Forward, where we discuss finance, accounts, and everything that counts. I have someone today who has built a very large fintech company. I have the co-founder of Liquiloans with me, Mr. Achal Mittal. Achal, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thanks, Anant. My pleasure.
The first, I know you've not done this ever, but it's okay. I have one very simple question for you. Sure. No pressure at all. What makes Mr. Ashneer Grover call you one of the best entrepreneurs to have worked with?
So Ashneer is being very generous here, right? So I think one trait common between Ashneer and me is like we want to build businesses, right? Yeah. After leaving Rentomojo, Gautam and I, so like how Pratham, your co-founder, you met in college, Gautam is my school friend, right? So we played board games like Stock Exchange, etc., bidding on Infosys, etc., thinking that ek din banayenge, right? So the whole idea was we wanted to build business grounds up, not for the investors, but for the love of the company, love for building profitable businesses, right? Once we left Rentomojo, we didn't think that we'll ever raise funding. We'll just build proper Marwadi Banya businesses, right? But coincidentally, we got term sheets from Matrix and one of the other large investors. At that time, it was tempting to put or take 10 crores, 15 crores rather than putting in our own money.
So you got your term sheet before you started the business?
Before we started. So the original term sheet was in our names. We had to first then convert the term sheet. We had to then form a company.
So what made them bet on you?
I think it's Rentomojo pedigree to an extent. So in Rentomojo, I think the first term sheet we got was after getting a no from 20 investors. So we have seen that part of the journey as well. And going on to raise $70-80 million in Rentomojo from some of the largest investors like IDG, Excel, Bain Capital, Samsung Ventures, etc. Right? But in my honest opinion, fintech businesses or finance businesses or typical NBFC businesses are not VC fundable businesses, right? Because what VCs look for is rocket ships, right? Whether it launches or not is a bet they are willing to take. But if it launches, they want it to launch really, really big. Unfortunately, the businesses which we are in, right, they are not rocket ships. And if you end up building like rocket ships, there are other stakeholders like regulators, RBI, etc., which are not very comfortable with that speed of growth. So you need to strike a fine balance.
So I think you're in a very interesting sector. It's had a lot of eyeballs in the last few years. More than that, it's heavily regulated. You're literally having thousands of crores in your AUM now, in your asset book now. And I want to understand on a daily basis, what is the tougher part of building fintech businesses? VC backed, VC not backed. It's difficult to get money. People do obviously sort of tell you that, listen, I can lend through Liquiloans. So what is so interesting about Liquiloans when you started it? Can you tell us the whole journey? And then, we'll work a little backwards to understand a little bit about Rento and life before that.
Sure. So very, very interesting, right? So Rentomojo also, if you think, was a P2P business, peer-to-peer lending business in guise of furniture rental. So probably we'll start about Rentomojo because that will give you a good context of why we started Liquiloans, right? So when we started Rentomojo, right, all we had in capital between 2-3 of us was 10-15 lakh rupees. We just bought furniture for that 10-15 lakh worth of furniture and started distributing pamphlets on the railway stations, Andheri Metro, right? So, and within a day, all of that 10-15 lakh rupees worth of furniture was taken on rent.
Wow.
Right? So, and usse mahine ka we were earning 1.5-2 lakh rupees on a 10-15 lakh, which is like 10-15% month on month. but we didn't have more capital. So the max we could grow was with that 1.5 lakhs which we were eating and reinvesting in the business. But Gautam, my co-founder, was from India Infoline, was from a private banking background. I was from a banking background. We thought if this kind of yield is sustainable, why not go to HNIs, Ultra HNIs, start saying that, hey, why don't you start owning this furniture, lease it back to us, we'll sublease it and then give you part of the...
So you were actually going door to door, talking to HNIs, Ultra HNIs.
That's what we did. And at scale, Barclays started...
building mein ab jaake.
Yeah, so it was cold calling because Gautam was a private banker. He had a few HNI contacts. I had a few, and that's how it started, right? And by that time, we had received funding from IDG and Excel. So that obviously made a little bit of a difference. And then at scale, Barclays started distributing this product to their HNIs, Ultra HNIs, and all exclusively distributing this product. In 2017, we went to Bain, US, right, to raise capital from Bain. Bain was the largest investor in Lending Club, which was the largest peer-to-peer lending platform in the world.
Okay, this is into finance.
Peer-to-peer lending.
Peer-to-peer lending. Okay,
yes, Lending Club, right? So Bain was the largest investor there, and Bain said that, look, you should meet Renault, who is the founder of Lending Club. We met Renault. He's like, guys, what you are doing is peer-to-peer lending in guise of furniture rental. So we got Bain and Renault in that Series C round with Rentomojo. This was back in 2017. Understood a lot of nuances on how P2P works globally and so on and so forth. So coincidentally, RBI came up with peer-to-peer lending guidelines in October 2017. And that's when we thought, like, let's start it in a full-fledged manner. And that's how Liquiloans was born then.
So tell me a little bit about your initial journey at Liquiloans. You told me that you got a term sheet before you started Liquiloans. Did you accept that term sheet? What happened post that? How's growth been? A little bit about, just for everyone to know how you're acquiring clients, etc.
Sure. So we had one or two term sheets. We ended up taking Matrix because we liked our discussion with Sarthak, who is now in SoftBank, and obviously Avnish, who is the founder in Matrix. So we really had a huge amount of respect for these guys, and we thought it will be a good journey. And obviously we had told our condition that we want patient capital. We shouldn't be in any hurry to generate those alpha returns, right? So they were on board with that, and they had kind of invested in large fintech companies with the exponential outcomes like Razor, Payoff, Business, 5-star, etc.
So they love the fintech space.
They love the fintech space, right? So we ended up accepting term sheet from them. In terms of business side, it was very, very organic for us. Gautam did his master's in finance from IIM Calcutta. I did it from Narsee Monjee. We both did CFA together. So I think this business was in our blood. Plus, we had cracked the asset side or liability side of the business by tying up with various wealth management firms and getting money in Rentomojo. So we obviously knew how to structure these kind of transactions, get capital and all. And on the other side, on building the asset side, which is getting the borrowers, I think there we didn't have to reinvent anything because the market was huge. Borrowers in India, it's a credit starved market. So if you're out in the market giving money to people, no one really declines, right? So our challenge was giving money to the absolutely prime borrowers, right? And you would know that the kind of segments which we target. When we had started peer-to-peer, right, Anant, the biggest challenge was it was kind of a subprime platform for in India.
So can you dumb it down for
Sure.
So
क्या होता था P2P में, if any borrower was not getting a loan from banks or NBFCs, then he would flock towards P2P.
Okay. So what is the difference between a P2P and a bank?
Bank obviously is allowed to lend from its own balance sheet, right? They take deposits from people, they take various other forms of deposits on their own balance sheet, and then they lend to people like you and me or whomsoever. Peer-to-peer lending is basically Anant lending to Achal through a platform, right? The money does not sit in Liquiloans balance sheet or the peer-to-peer platform's balance sheet. It is Anant's money which is going to Achal. If there are any profits arising out of that or returns, it gets passed on directly to Anant. And if there are any losses, that has to be borne by Anant. Right? What we have done differently in Liquiloans is that Anant's 1 lakh rupees is diversified across hundreds and hundreds of borrowers, right? So if you have lent your 5 lakh rupees, it will be diversified across at least 500 people. Of course, basis your risk profile and what kind of risk target you want to, risk segment you want to target, right? And we say that you get up to 9% returns. Our underlying borrower portfolio IRR would be around 17 to 18%. So essentially 9% is our commission, but what we tell lenders is that the NPA will first be absorbed by that commission, right? The current platform's NPA is around 1%. So which is very, very decent. Yeah. So because it's the prime platform, the borrowers are also very, very good, and most of the borrowers come at no cost EMI, right? So they're borrowing not because they need money, but because they're getting at low cost, right? So what essentially means is that for Anant, it technically becomes very, very risk-free, because the platform's NPA has to be 8x for Anant to lose his returns, right? So it's virtually a 300 bips or 400 bips more than a AAA rated debt mutual fund. And in terms of liquidity, right, if you want your money tomorrow, then you can probably sell your receivables
to someone else.
to someone else.
Yeah.
So to that extent, the exchange or the platform is very, very liquid. So that's how we have structured it.
And that's where the name Liquid.
That's why the name Liquiloans.
Yes. So let's understand, because you spoke about the background in finance which has helped you. Tell me a little bit about, a little bit of your childhood, the education you've done up until school.
Sure. So I was born in Chandigarh.
Okay.
Brought up in Mumbai. My dad was in RBI, so he had a transferable job.
Achha, banking experience khun mein hi aapke.
Yeah. So dad was a central banker for around 20-25 years.
Okay. What did he do, if you don't?
So now he's on the board of India Bulls.
Okay.
So in 2007, he was on deputation from Reserve Bank of India to Qatar Central Bank in Qatar. Was there for a year. Over there, he met Sameer, who is the founder of India Bulls. India Bulls at that time was a startup. He had gone to Qatar for a fundraise, and that's how he met my dad. And then her dad joined India Bulls in 2008. So he's been with the group ever since, right? Okay. So a bit of my financing or lending background comes from that pedigree as well.
क्या नहीं करना है पहले बताया गया है.
क्या नहीं किया है पहले पता चल जाता है, right? Correct. So moved to Bombay in 96. Was in Goregaon, Gokuldham for the longest period of time. Studied there till my 10th.
How were you as a student?
I would say above average, but not in the top 3 or 4.
Okay.
But I was good with extracurriculars, debates, elocutions, etc. So that's what interested me. But good enough to get admission wherever required, right? So,
very good. That's a flex.
So we are Marwadis. We know to optimize our time. So till 9th, I would say I was a pretty average student, but in 10th scored really well, to the shock of my parents also. Ended up getting in one of the decent commerce colleges.
Which is probably top 3 colleges in Bombay, yeah?
Yeah. The fun fact is, for first 1 week I went to HR.
Okay.
from Goregaon, right? So, and back the HR townie kids didn't know where Goregaon is. Like, they asked me, one of the kids, where do you come from? Like, Goregaon. And the kid asked, where is Goregaon? The other kid was like, stupid, it's ahead of Andheri. I was like, yes, let's shift to NM. I know, that's why I brought it up.
Okay, ऐसा नहीं होता है. हमको पता है गोरेगांव का है. टिक मार. So then?
So studied in NM, did my CFA, worked in HSBC.
So what made you do your CFA? Like, because you did your BCom from NM, top institution in India. Why CFA for you?
Yes, so I think I loved finance at that point in time, and this was back in 2008-9. The awareness for CFA was a little less from what it is as compared to now, right? But I think one thing I was very, very clear is that stock market is something which excites me. Time value of money is something excites me, and accounting is something which does not excite me at all, right? So it was easy elimination that I don't want to do CA. And
we didn't have too many options back then. CA karo, CFA karo, CS karo.
CFA bhi I
preliminary studies correct. Yeah.
It was CA and CS or
MBA.
BCom plus MBA, right? Yeah. So from CFA it was because was interested in finance.
Back in the CFA you had to go abroad in
right, yeah. So it was like that, but it was good fun, right? Yeah. then worked in HSBC for a year and a half before.
What did you do? Can you tell us a little bit about your banking years?
Yeah, so HSBC was nothing, right? HSBC back then was very light on asset building. It was more into trade finance, bank guarantees, and export financing and all. And even that was for multinational clients. So my job was to source CASA balances for the bank. So used to target those businesses which could keep good balances with the bank, and have to target lots and lots and lots of that to build that liabilities book for the.
Still doing that.
You're still doing that, yeah. So one thing I realized, Anant, is that sales is a very, very underrated profile, right?
Yeah.
And over abused one too.
Yeah.
People think that it's a dirty business, but I think those were the formative years of my life where.
So banker actually ज़्यादा sale करता है, and you think selling is a skill which is not taught to most of us actually.
Correct.
And it's a little bit which you come through experience.
And it's a little looked down upon also, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because the telecallers and whatnot. I mean, everyone gets hounded by those guys, but it's a tough job. Constantly you're hearing no 1,000 times. So how did you deal with the fact that you did your CFA और अभी आपको बिठा दिया है बेचने के लिए for and getting clients, etc. So of course rejection was a big part of it. So how do you deal with rejection early on, especially when we are young, naive? What were the thoughts going in your mind at that?
Yeah, so I was the only fresher out of BCom who was doing sales, right?
Okay.
My peers were 10 years into banking or 11 years into banking, doing the same business. And at that point in time, someone took a call on me, okay, let's take a call on him and get him in this, right? So first 1 or 2 months was a disaster,
Okay.
right? Here I didn't even know what a trade credit is, what you should go out and tell the clients about the bank. So I was.
और कोई सिखाता नहीं है.
और कोई सिखाता नहीं है, but targets day one से आते हैं.
Okay.
So first 1 or 2 months was just observing what people are doing, how the bosses are ragging you, shouting at you and all. But ठीक है, back of the mind, my solace was worst case scenario, I'd write a CAT or a GMAT and go for my MBA. So these are the years where I'm anyway looking for experience. The bread does not run on me, right? So I enjoyed that experience. After a month, 2, I started having my own techniques. Okay, these 10-year guys have a particular way of doing things, but there can be a smarter way of doing something like that. So so these guys would directly cold call and go to these clients' office, looks for appointments and all. I started tying up with CA firms or lawyers, legal firms.
जिनके पास already clients होते हैं.
जिनके पास already clients होते हैं, right? So
Liquiloans का जो business model है वो 21-22 साल से आपने बिठाना चालू कर दिया था.
I think Liquiloans का model was basis my past experience कि जो भी strengths है उसके basis पे क्या model बन सकता है वो बना लो, right? So then ended up really doing really well in HSBC to the extent जब NM से ख़त्म हुआ था मेरी studies. I had a PPO from HSBC at 2 notches higher, but was like, let's do something new.
Okay.
And then spent to corporate banking.
Okay. So after HSBC you went to?
After HSBC, I interned in Citibank between those 2 years of MBA, and then did ICICI corporate banking for 2 years.
So what did you do at ICICI?
So ICICI, I was looking at corporate clients like L&T, Hinduja, Wockhardt, Adani, etc. So on one side you had a absolutely cash-rich corporate like L&T, which does not require a lot of funds, or there are too many banks stocking their door and asking them to take credit. And then there's Wockhardt, where we had given past loans which had not done absolutely well and trying to restructure them and all. And then there is Hinduja, which has legacy in Europe and India. And then there is Adani at that point in time, which in the Congress era was dominated by ED raids and all. And because we had exposure to Adani, obviously they were questioning to us also. So had varied level of experiences with different groups. But what I was looking for them was overall from their leverage and leverage exposure, overseas funding to their cash management services, etc. So taking care of the entire relationship for these 5 to 6 corporates. over a period of these 2-3 years before I
switch to Rentomojo. Okay, so let's understand a little bit more about Rentomojo. Rentomojo is a platform where you lease furniture out, but in disguise, it actually was a peer-to-peer platform where capital was involved. Commodity was furniture.
Correct.
So, how was the first few years of Rento? Because first startup where you worked at, you're one of the core members, if I can call yourself that. So, how was the first experience? Because startup versus corporate, बहुत फर्क होता है. And the grind से लेके difficulty level से लेके office भी बहुत अलग-अलग होती है.
Yeah, so I think Rentomojo was just 2.5-3 years, but I still think that it's a much bigger tenure than Liquiloans, even though Liquiloans is now 5.5 years, because we've seen the highs and lows, the new experiences really in Rento, because effectively that was my first startup, right? So a 26 or 27-year-old guy leading a team of 300 people, some double your age and all, is an overwhelming experience. You would know that, right? And in my previous jobs of ICCA or HSBC or Citibank, it was a IC role, individual contributor. I didn't have a team in ICCA. Forget 5 or 6, I didn't even have 1 or 2 people under me in ICCA or HSBC, right? So from an individual contributor role, you effectively becoming a team manager or a team lead, right? It's an overwhelming experience, right?
I'll just stop here and ask you one question that, again, school doesn't teach us this. How do you manage people? So what were your mantras early on, and what were the mistakes you made? So at least we can reflect on the mistakes not to make for young viewers who are going to be watching this.
Yeah, so for me, I think it was very essential for me in Rentomojo to lead by example, right? So I ended up doing the dirty work, and people then saw and
getting your hands dirty is difficult, right?
It's difficult but necessary, right?
Yeah, but not everyone does that.
But not everyone does that, right? So because we had exposure to some of the largest investors early on, and their portfolio companies had founders which had a very, very different style of working than me, right? And at that age, it's very easy to kind of imitate their style and see whether that works. And also, so I tried doing that, but in a month or two, I realized, let me stick to my strengths and my way of leading people, which is like a captain approach in a cricket rather than a coach approach in soccer, right? To lead in the ground rather than lead outside. So that worked for me. But one thing, the core is that delegation is the key, right? Delegate, right? While you can be a good individual contributor, as the company scales, right, you have to realize that you can't do everything on your own.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? While knowing everything is essential, you should have done everything in past, but what works for a 0 to 1 kind of a setup does not work for 1 to 10, does not work from 10 to 100. So your leadership style also has to be adaptive, has to be empathetic, but at the same time has to be assertive as well. Result oriented.
Yeah.
So
when you're picking your people, what are you sort of looking at? Any example you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so for me, I think attitude is the key, right? What I realize is everyone, and what we are essentially doing is no rocket science. So we're not looking for scientists, or we're not looking for rock star people. We're looking for good set of disciplined people who know their job, who are experienced at it, and can do it day in, day out, and obviously are trustworthy and loyal, right? We're dealing with people's money, right? So we have to build those processes, systems, setup, and all, which are very boring in nature.
But essential. But super essential, because you're in a very sensitive sector also. Handling people's money, and integrity is such a big part of it. So you're looking for integrity in people, but how do you judge someone's integrity, or how do you judge the fact that he's not going to mess up someone's money?
Yeah, so for us, I think the first 15 people we hired were all known guys, right? All referenced guys. Someone working with me in Rentomojo, someone who worked with Gautam in India and Infoline. Some friend of friend working in US and now wants to come back. Gautam's back from IIM Calcutta. So these were our core 6 to 7 people whom we started.
Most of them are still there?
All are there.
All
are still there, right? So we've had almost negligible attrition at middle level or senior level. And a few of them who have left either for their higher studies or for their entrepreneurial pursuit, which we obviously encourage, right? But what I've realized is if you hire a first set of 10, 15 good people, they are the ones who will get some, like them, bottoms up, right? So
Culture build hota rehta hai.
culture build hota rehta hai.
हाँ.
But obviously when you're scaling up, there are a few mistakes you make, and it's not possible to keep the same culture which was there in the first year as similar in the fifth year, right? So in the first year you would know names of each and every employee of yours. In the fifth year, probably if you know employee of names of even 10%, you're lucky, right? So it's difficult to kind of keep that culture constant, but then I think hiring a good HR and having a good culture team is equally essential.
So what is business as usual for you every day?
So business as usual for me is different on different days, right?
So you're primarily handling the business side of Liquiloans. So how do you go about that? And how do you keep building, constantly finding new clients?
I think first 1 or 2 years was again back to meeting new people, cold calling. Matrix investors were super helpful. They have bunch of their portfolio companies. They know multiple people whom they think can be relevant for us from the perspective of building business. You hire the right team. So first 1 or 2 or 3 years was just kind of letting people know about what Liquiloans does, the brand Liquiloans, and kind of making them trust the brand, right? The last 2 years is just delivering on our promises and all. At least now people know what Liquiloans does. So there's a good amount of inbound interest which come. And obviously, if our team reaches out to some of the clients, the inertia to accept us is much lesser as it was 2 years or 3 years back. And what has really worked for us, Anant, is that we've been very, very consistent in what we have promised. Never have we scaled down operations, never have we fired people, even in COVID, right? We had not stopped funding and all. Obviously, we were selective and all, it's people's money, but we've never taken an extreme approach anywhere, like being absolutely gung-ho during the good times and absolutely conservative during the bad times. ये हमने कभी नहीं किया. We have always been absolutely consistent in our approach, be it dealing with clients or dealing with employees. But at the same time, not being exuberant in the good times. Like for example, in COVID, we didn't fire anyone, we didn't cut anyone's salary. But obviously won't be the best paymasters during the best times. So that's the approach which has worked for us.
But I think that goes on for all businesses. What's happening today in the startup?
Absolutely.
And I think it comes back from the culture which venture capitalists sell to their NPs,
Correct.
That आपसे पैसा लो, हम 7 साल में आपको 6 गुना रिटर्न देंगे. उसका प्रेशर आता है come towards companies where they invest in startups. And startups, while early years they can from zero, because they've lit essentially from zero, they can give you a return at a much smaller scale.
Correct.
But consistently doing 5x, 6x, 10x is difficult. 8x, that's not sustainable. Yeah. So, and you've professed the fact that Liquiloans has to grow in a more fundamental approach. So, how are you going about that? What is growth mean for you?
I think growth is a byproduct of what you do daily, right? The daily huddles, the daily drills, the discipline, etc. And if you're not, so while there are targets for the teams, right? There are no insane targets because we don't have that insane pressure. And I have realized that if you're targeting a market where the potential is 100 and you give target of 150, then there are bound to be issues which we have seen of late, right? So the good thing is we've only promised what we can deliver to our investors, what we have promised to our employees and other stakeholders. And targets in Liquiloans are very, very realistic. While we'll be stickler for targets and discipline and all, you won't see any frauds or instances of mis-selling, etc. in Liquiloans because the targets are not unreasonable, right? And we at Liquiloans are firm believers that we'll prefer culture and integrity over performance any day, right? So we've not thought twice before kind of letting go of some of our high performance where we think they've not adopted the right ways to achieve growth. Right, so
because again, it comes back to the integrity.
And
so how have numbers been from the start? It's your 6th year of operation now. So can you give us a little idea, even if it's surface level?
So we're close to $500 million in terms of assets under management. I mean, probably in terms of our AUM, we would be one of the top 5 to 6 in terms of AUM in the entire fintech ecosystem, right? And this is just by taking 10-15 crores of funding till date, right? So because again, it goes back to the ground level. We founders own approximately 2/3 of the company even now.
Okay.
Right. So to that extent, we are playing more of a long-term game than a valuation game, right?
And that's the only thing which is sustainable,
That's
right?
the only-
You can't build your profit and loss by equity money, by what you've raised, which most of the companies have done, and you're exactly going opposite.
Yes.
Awesome. So what made Kunal Shah Cred invest in you, and how was that journey? Because I think that वो raise तो कुछ 200-250 million पे हुआ था.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So Kunal is one of the entrepreneurs for whom I have a huge respect, right? He's built free charge in past, and what he's been building in Cred is immensely commendable, right? In fact, he for me is a go-to person in terms of any issues and all, and he's regarded as a fintech expert, and rightly so, right? Fundamentally, what I realized, Anant, is while the approach both of us are taking to build our companies is very, very different. But in terms of ethics, principles, the core values and all, we're very, very similar. So I think it's a good DNA which Cred brings to Liquiloans in terms of branding, in terms of the tech capabilities, etc. Right? We've taken Cred primarily for those 2-3 reasons. In fact, in the early days, many people knew Liquiloans for their partnership with Cred rather than the core fundamental business. So I think of the partnership with Cred, the investment from Cred brought a lot of credibility to the name Liquiloans, and it was just to honor the relationship, right? So when we had raised money from Cred, we had probably 6x, 7x of the money which we had raised from Matrix in our bank account. So
Oh wow! So it was a very small amount, but it was more about a strategic partnership.
it was more of secondary than primary, right?
Okay.
So we kind of politely had to ask our angel investors to make way for Cred to honor that relationship. So Cred wanted a larger piece, but we said that the amount we can afford right now, or the stake which we can afford right now, is 5 to 6%, and he was gracious enough to accept that percentage and came on the cap table.
Superb. So now you have Kunal Shah, and you're working role. I'm assuming different personalities. How does mentorship work for you? Because again, when you're building companies, you're constantly confused about which path to take. So how do you go about decision making? Who are mentors who help you shape, and how do you get time of them?
So the good thing now, Anant, is they're more of friends than mentors. And even in mentorship, at least for me, it was that you had to think twice before asking questions to any of them, right? But with some of them like Kunal, etc., it's a very easy process, right? And the good part is even Kunals and Ashnis of the world realize that it's not a perfect world. While at the outside, everything might look perfect. They are gracious enough to tell me the kind of mistakes they have made and what I should learn from, right? Kunal, the approach Kunal has taken to build a company versus what we are taking is very, very different. So obviously, while you can admire and look up to Kunal's journey, but you also have to know your own DNA and saying that this is not for you, right? The DNA of the founders have matter a lot in terms of company building. So you kind of take the good values and the strong points of everyone, try to see if it works for you. But if it doesn't suit your DNA, finally the body will not accept it, and it throws back, right? So it's not just with Kunal or Ashneer, it's with anyone, right? So
you might not work for them, or vice versa. So now, where are you taking Liquiloans from where we are today to the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? 5 साल का तो कोई सोच ही नहीं सकता. साल से 18 महीना हम सोच सकते. 5 साल का प्लान तो सिर्फ इसी को लेकर आया होता है. So what are you building towards? Where do you see Liquiloans in the next 5 years?
So Anant, we are very clear that we want to become a financial services conglomerate, right? Right now we're doing unsecured, small ticket size, short tenor loans, right? We we have started getting into secured loans, bike loans, etc. We are the largest or the second largest financier for Ola Electric, right? So we have started doing used four-wheelers and new two-wheeler loans, etc. We want to get into housing finance at some day. We want to get into mutual funds. We want to get into multiple other financial services and then probably merge all of them into a bank. So that's the...
Okay. So eventual goal is to hopefully make a bank. So now you're going into a crowded space. So how do you fend off competition?
See, financial services has already been in a very, very competitive space, right? It's a very crowded space, but I think it's not a winner's take all market.
Okay.
Uday Kotak or Kotak has been very, very selective in disbursing loans. Very almost does very, very little business, and they are more than a 5 billion market cap company.
Right.
So in financial services, I think the biggest secret to success is not doing anything wrong. So
Okay.
you might not do multiple right things.
Not saying yes to everyone.
Yes. That's the biggest thing in financial services business, right? You're not here to please anyone, or you're not here to just disburse money. The biggest moat in a financial services business is collecting back your money, right? So what I have realized is that doing 10 things right and 2 things wrong is more fatal than doing 3 things right and 0 things wrong, right? So our mantra is avoid as many mistakes as possible, even if it means that you're letting go of 2 to 3 good bets which you think might be dicey in future. So
how did marketing work for you overall? Like you told me initially, लोग Liquiloans को credit के वजह से जानते थे. अभी how do you see yourself marketing yourself in the years to come? Because it's right now your lower ticket sizes, loans from maybe smaller thousands to a few lakh rupees. Now when you're entering into the really big markets, obviously trust is something which people will speak about.
Correct.
So how do you build onto that, build trust and speak a little bit about the marketing approach?
I don't think so, Anant. Gautam or my DNA is marketing, right? In fact, we have spent $0 on marketing thus far. Okay. What has traditionally worked for is a B2B2C business. We tie up people with companies like Zell or Upgrads or a VLCC and get business through their consumers rather than directly getting consumers, right? So we are a very traditional setup like that, where we don't know how the ROI on digital marketing works or what are the long-term benefits of building a brand, right? For us, marketing or building a brand is word of mouth. If one investor or one lender is happy with your services, it goes ahead and recommends 10 others, right? So, and same with partners like you. So I think for us, that's worked well, and we want to continue like that. So
What Jeff Bezos said about Amazon is a platform which sells basic consumer things. It's not really technology per se, but it doesn't change over a period of time. People खरीदने वाले हैं diaper हर महीना या फिर अपना cosmetics हर महीना. So I think you're in the business of less change, but fintech as a ecosystem has evolved so much. So how are you using technology to leverage? Because especially platform बनाने से लेके you have no technical experience. You're not a tech founder. तो आप कैसे tech को देखते हैं?
So that has also evolved, right? And 5 years back when we started, we thought tech is an enabler for what we are doing, right? But in last 1 or 2 years, we have thought that, or we have transitioned our thought from the chain of like tech enabled to tech led, right? So we are obviously making those investments with respect to technology, and all our monthly outflow in tech itself is around 1.5 crore. That's how much we are investing on the platforms, right? Again, you're kind of dealing with people's money. You have to be super secure. You have to have the best infra, best
security mechanisms and whatnot.
Yeah. So for us, tech is undoubtedly one of the biggest levers for growth, or if it doesn't work, then also tech takes a huge part of the blame, right? So that's how serious we are about tech. We have multiple lines of complexities in the way we think about tech, or the way tech has to deliver for us. For as simple a function as Anant selling his portfolio to Achal, right? Or in terms of repayments, how do you ascertain those repayments, how do you do credit assessment, how do borrowers interact with lenders on our platform, right? It's a two-sided marketplace. So the complexities are multifold in what we are building, but I think that's going to be the mode going forward.
Awesome. I think Liquiloans I've been a user since the last 12 to 18 months. In Zell, we use it. I think we actually done crores and crores of business with you guys. I think thankful because it's helped us build a business, help students get easy finance access. You're in an ecosystem where there are multiple stakeholders you're playing with. It's tough business. Unfortunately, it's with money, very sensitive. I think you're doing a fabulous job with Gautam. I think if this podcast takes up, we'll call you for part 2 for sure. But thank you so much for all you do. And great to see you building Liquiloans. And I mean, if it's a bank, we'd like to be a piece of that also at some point of time.
Absolutely, Anand. Thanks a lot for having me here. Look forward. Bye.
Thank you.